Was motion to suppress evidence, search warrant requiring disclosure by the provider of an electronic communication service, or the contents of the wire electronic systems for 180 days. Motion to suppress number 2 was everything they found on his Twitter account.
The YNW Melly case, one of the most shocking and complex murder trials in hip-hop history, has taken yet another wild turn. After more than 6 years of legal chaos, conflicting testimonies, and viral courtroom clips, new developments have pushed the case into uncharted territory. What started as a straightforward double homicide has turned into a tangled web of betrayal, legal drama, and power moves behind the scenes. The latest twist?
Press pause on all these motions. I'll press pause. I'm not going to move this trial date. This trial is going forward in September. So if these motions are heard next month, or they're heard in March, or they're heard in August, or they're heard contemporaneously during his trial, which again would not be the most ideal way to do things. If that's what ends up happening, that's what ends up happening. But the one thing I can tell you is not going to happen is someone that has been in custody for 2,160 days, his trial is not going to be delayed.
YNW Melly's co-defendant, YNW Bortland, is now set to go to trial first, a move that could change everything about Melly's defense. Prosecutors are hoping that Bortland's case will set a precedent, giving them leverage, evidence, and a clear narrative before they bring Melly back to court. But that decision could also backfire, especially if Bortland's team exposes inconsistencies in the prosecution's story. The original case dates back to 2018, when prosecutors accused Melly and Bortland of staging a drive-by shooting to cover up the murders of their close friends YNW Juvie and YNW Sack Chaser. Authorities claimed that Melly shot both victims from inside a car, then enlisted Bortland to help dispose of the evidence and drive the bodies to a hospital.
Change everything again. In 2025, the news broke that Melly's lawyer, Raven Liberty, is being investigated for witness tampering. It's not clear what the cops think she actually did.
But despite that gruesome narrative, the case has dragged on without a final verdict, mainly because of the chaotic courtroom battles and endless mistrials that have plagued the Florida justice system in this case. From jurors disagreeing to witnesses backing out, every attempt to convict Melly has ended in confusion. And now, instead of retrying him right away, the prosecution wants to flip the script by focusing on Bortland, a decision that many say could make or break the entire case. The reasoning behind this move appears to be strategic. Legal analysts believe prosecutors are betting that if they can secure a conviction against Bortland first, they'll have stronger ground to stand on against Melly. The feds are reportedly planning to use similar evidence, ballistic data, phone records, and even music lyrics to tie both men to the murders. But with Bortland's trial coming first, that evidence will be tested publicly for the first time since the original case began. If any holes appear, if a witness contradicts themselves or the physical evidence doesn't line up, Melly's defense will have a massive advantage when it's his turn in court. On the flip side, if Bortland is found guilty, it could tighten the noose around Melly's neck, making it nearly impossible to convince a future jury that he wasn't involved. Complicating things further, Melly's legal team has completely unraveled. His former lead attorney, Raven Liberty, was not only removed from the case but is now under investigation herself for alleged misconduct related to the proceedings. Sources claim the state is looking into how certain documents were handled and whether her communications with Melly crossed ethical boundaries. For an already messy situation, this bombshell only deepens the crisis. Melly's new legal team has been scrambling to rebuild a defense strategy while dealing with evidence that's been revisited, reinterpreted, and reclassified over the years. The question is no longer just about guilt or innocence. It's about whether the process itself has been fair. At this point, the YNW Melly case has become a study in how fame, money, and pressure can twist a courtroom drama into something that feels more like a reality show than a trial. Every development goes viral. Every hearing gets clipped, captioned, and debated on social media. Fans, bloggers, and legal commentators treat each twist like a plotline. But behind the viral moments lies a very real fight for freedom. Prosecutors have maintained from the beginning that Melly executed his two friends in cold blood, motivated by jealousy, disputes over money, and growing tension within their YNW collective. But what makes this case so confusing is the lack of a clear motive supported by hard evidence. Despite dramatic statements in court, prosecutors haven't been able to present a single witness who directly saw the shooting take place. Instead, the state's case has relied heavily on forensics, text messages, and the assumption that Melly's fame somehow fueled his downfall. Ballistic experts testified that the bullet trajectories didn't match the story Bortland gave police about a drive-by shooting, arguing that the shots came from inside the car. Meanwhile, the defense countered that police mishandled evidence and ignored alternative possibilities. At one point, Melly's team even argued that ballistic residue could have been transferred after the fact, meaning someone else may have handled the weapon or tampered with the scene. These competing theories have kept the jury divided every time. In the first trial, the jury was reportedly split 9-3 in favor of conviction, not enough to reach a verdict. That mistrial was supposed to be followed by a quick retrial, but as new evidence emerged, the timeline shattered. Then came the social media circus. The prosecution began pointing to Melly's old Instagram posts, claiming that his captions and emojis hinted at guilt. Even his music, including songs like Murder on My Mind, became part of the argument, as prosecutors tried to portray the lyrics as confessions rather than creative storytelling. This sparked a national conversation about rap lyrics being used as evidence, something legal experts say is setting a dangerous precedent. Civil rights groups, musicians, and even lawmakers have argued that using art against artists in court is discriminatory and erases the line between performance and reality. For Melly, this tactic has become a double-edged sword. It's kept his name trending and his case in public discussion, but it's also shaped a narrative that paints him as guilty before any jury officially decides. Meanwhile, YNW Bortland's role in this entire saga remains one of the biggest mysteries. From day one, Bortland has claimed innocence, saying he was blindsided by the situation and only helped drive the victims to the hospital in a panic. But the prosecution insists he was part of the plan, citing phone records that allegedly show coordination between him and Melly in the hours before the shooting. What's fascinating is how Bortland's fate could now determine Melly's. If his team manages to undermine the forensic timeline, the state's entire theory collapses. But if they prove coordination between both men, it may finally give prosecutors the joint motive they've been chasing since 2018. Either way, this upcoming trial is expected to be one of the most watched courtroom events in recent memory, and the outcome will ripple directly into Melly's future. What's making the case even wilder is how corruption and controversy have crept into nearly every corner of it. The firing of Melly's attorney wasn't the only internal shakeup. Rumors from court insiders suggest that key law enforcement officials connected to the case are also under review for how evidence was handled and shared with the media. Certain leaks, including alleged crime scene photos and text messages, appeared online before being officially released, leading the defense to accuse the state of trial by publicity. Whether or not those claims are true, they've created enough doubt to make this one of the most chaotic murder cases Florida has ever seen. Adding to that tension is the growing pressure from the public. Fans have split into two camps, those who believe Melly was framed by the system, and those convinced he's guilty but too rich and famous to face real justice. That divide has made every court date feel like a spectacle, with crowds gathering outside and live updates circulating faster than the judge can speak. Reporters describe the energy in the courtroom as unpredictable, a mix of high-stakes legal combat and social media theater. It's a case where both sides are fighting for more than a verdict. They're fighting for control of the story. Behind the scenes, the prosecution's strategy has evolved. After two failed attempts to lock in a conviction, they're now shifting toward a broader narrative, framing Melly as the mastermind of a criminal enterprise that went beyond one night of violence. It's a dangerous play because it introduces RICO-style implications without actually charging him under those laws. The idea is to establish motive through influence, showing how Melly's position as a rising star gave him power over his circle. If that narrative sticks, it could sway jurors emotionally, even if the physical evidence remains weak. On the other hand, the defense is leaning heavily into reasonable doubt, painting Melly as the victim of both betrayal and bias. Perhaps the biggest emotional thread in this entire story is the relationship between Melly and the victims. Juvie and Sockchaser weren't random associates. They were childhood friends, part of the same brotherhood that built the YNW brand. That connection makes the accusation sting even more, because if Melly is guilty, it means fame truly destroyed the foundation of loyalty that once defined his rise. But if he's innocent, it means he's been trapped in a nightmare created by missteps, misjudgments, and bad timing. Either way, the story is tragic. It's a reminder of how quickly the transition from the streets to superstardom can spiral out of control when ego, loyalty, and paranoia collide. As YNW Bortland's trial looms, both camps are preparing for the fight of their lives. Prosecutors have doubled down on their theory, reportedly introducing new digital evidence, including cell phone pings, deleted text recoveries, and unreleased photos from that night. They claim these materials prove coordination between Melly and Bortlen, as well as a cover-up that extended hours after the shooting. The defense, however, has countered that many of these so-called new findings are recycled evidence reinterpreted to fit a shaky timeline. One defense filing even accused the state of desperation, saying the repeated delays show they lack confidence in their own case. Meanwhile, inside the YNW camp, tensions are rising. Several members of the group have distanced themselves publicly, deleting photos and unfollowing each other online. Rumors suggest that some affiliates have been subpoenaed to testify, though it's unclear who's cooperating with prosecutors and who's refusing to speak. The situation has created a wave of paranoia, not just for Melly, but for everyone connected to him. In hip-hop, loyalty is everything, and the idea of someone flipping or providing testimony could destroy reputations beyond repair. Some fans believe this is exactly what the system wants, to turn the YNW movement against itself. The timeline for Melly's retrial remains uncertain. His new legal team is still fighting procedural battles, including motions to suppress certain evidence they claim was obtained illegally. They've also hinted that they may seek a change of venue, arguing that Melly can't get a fair trial in Broward County due to the overwhelming media coverage. It's a risky but strategic move. Shifting to a different jurisdiction could buy time and reset public perception. Still, even if that motion succeeds, the shadow of the first mistrial hangs heavy. The prosecution will adapt, refine their story, and come back even harder. And if Bortlen is convicted in his own trial, expect them to use that momentum to hit Melly with everything they have left. For now, both men remain locked in the same fate. Two friends turned co-defendants, waiting for the system to decide who takes the fall. The public may see it as entertainment, but behind the memes and debates are two families grieving, two careers destroyed, and a city still haunted by what really happened that night. At this point, the YNW Melly saga isn't just a trial, it's a cultural phenomenon. It's a test of how far the justice system, the media, and the public are willing to go when fame collides with tragedy. Melly's story represents the darker side of the rap dream, where success magnifies every flaw and loyalty becomes a question mark instead of a bond. Whether guilty or innocent, Melly has become a symbol of modern rap's double-edged sword, the power to rise above your circumstances and the curse of never being able to escape them. For the prosecution, this case is about accountability, proving that celebrity doesn't grant immunity. For the defense, it's about systemic bias, exposing how black artists are often judged by their art instead of their actions. Either way, this case is setting precedent. Future trials involving rappers will cite the Melly case as an example of how far courts will go to connect lyrics, lifestyle, and legality. The implications stretch far beyond Florida. This is about the national perception of hip-hop as a whole. In the streets, the sentiment is divided. Some believe Melly's fate was sealed the moment he became famous, that too many people wanted him to fail. Others think this is justice finally catching up to a man who crossed the line between art and reality. But the truth might lie somewhere in between, in the chaos of success, betrayal, and the blurred lines of street credibility. As Bortlen's trial begins, eyes around the world are watching, waiting for the first domino to fall. Whatever happens next, one thing is certain. When this case ends, the rap game will never be the same. The YNW legacy, once about brotherhood and success, now stands as a cautionary tale about fame, loyalty, and the thin line between freedom and destruction. Now that both sides are locked in for what could be the final chapter of this long-running courtroom battle, the atmosphere around YNW Melly's case feels heavier than ever. The prosecution is tightening its grip, confident that Bortlen's trial will open the door to a full conviction, while the defense is preparing for the fight of its life. But beyond the legal paperwork, this moment feels like the last stand for an artist who once symbolized the blurred line between art and reality. Every new headline, every leaked motion, every witness name whispered online adds another layer to the pressure building behind the walls of that courtroom. Insiders say Melly's demeanor has changed, quieter, more focused, no longer the smiling, confident performer that first hit the charts. He's facing not just a jury, but a public that's already made up its mind. And with the music industry watching closely, the outcome of this case could determine how far the system is willing to go to make an example out of a rapper. Because if Melly is convicted, it will send a message, not just to Florida, but to every artist whose lyrics touch on pain, violence, or survival. It'll mark a turning point where the justice system can't tell the difference between storytelling and confession. But if he walks free, the impact could be just as massive. It would expose deep flaws in the prosecution's methods and reaffirm that music can't be treated as evidence of guilt. Either way, when the verdict drops, it'll echo far beyond that courtroom. It'll define the next era of hip-hop's relationship with the law, for better or worse. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for ongoing updates, courtroom recaps, and deep dives into hip-hop's most intense legal sagas.